Hi guys, welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Carmen. Welcome. So, I always tell people to go with your intuition. If your intuition is telling you very strongly that you belong to a certain starseed group, then definitely go with your intuition first, because that's going to be more important than anything that anybody else can tell you. So what that means is that if there is a particular starseed ET group that you happen to be drawn to, then it could very well be that that is your starseed origins if you are drawn to that group. But if you would like to have some confirmation to kind of just confirm your intuition, or if you are curious to see if you might belong to a certain starseed group and you really have no idea if you do or which one it might be, then you can definitely use numerology to do that. And you can also use astrology as well. But in this video, we're just going to be specifically using numerology to help you to find out if you might actually be a starseed. And the reason we can do this is because there are certain patterns and numbers that we look for in somebody's chart. And if you have certain key numbers in your chart, then it's very likely that you might be a starseed and that you might come from a specific starseed group. Now, what exactly is a starseed? So we have all lived many lifetimes on different planets throughout the universe. And Earth is not the only one that we have incarnated into. And for some people, they have incarnated onto other planets a little bit more frequently than some of the other planets. So if you are a starseed, that means that your soul has lived more lifetimes on another planet than on planet Earth. That doesn't mean that this is your first lifetime on Earth. It just means that you have lived more lifetimes on another planet than on Earth. Now, if you don't believe in starseeds and you don't believe in extraterrestrial life, that there's a possibility that there might be life outside of Earth in this great, big, huge universe that we live in, then this video is not for you. And this video is really just meant for people that are kind of open to it already and open to the idea that there might be life outside of this planet, on other planets and in other galaxies in the universe. And I'm not trying to convince you that there are starseeds and ETs and that there is life outside of this planet. This video is really just for people that are already open to the idea. So if you're open to the idea and the possibility, then this video is for you. Now we're going to be looking at a few key numbers in your numerological birth chart to determine if you're a starseed and what planet you might be from. Now, of course, if you have your full numerological chart, you can also use that as well. But really, you just need your core chart. And if you don't know what your core chart is, then check out a video I did on how to calculate these numbers. There are only 4 numbers that you need to know. And it's really easy to calculate these numbers. All you need is your date of birth and the first, middle, and last name on your birth certificate. And you will be able to calculate these numbers in just a couple of minutes. So check out that video below if you haven't calculated these numbers already. I'll put a link to it below in the description box. And after you have calculated those numbers, then you can continue to watch the rest of this video. So in this video today, we're just going to be going over some of the most common types of starseed groups. Of course, there's many more starseed groups out there, but I don't have time to cover all of them in this video. But if you want me to do a future video on some of the other starseed groups, let me know in the comments below, or also hit the like button because that tells me to do more content like this in the future as well. Now, I got a lot of information about the characteristics of each starseed group from this great website called otherworldlyoracle.com. No affiliation, just using it as a reference. So if you want more information about the specific starseed groups, you can check out that website. There's a lot of information on it, and I'll put a link to it below in the description box. So one of the most common starseed groups that you've probably heard a lot about is the Pleiadians. Now, if any of this information really resonates with you and your intuition is telling you that you are a starseed. And if you have these numbers in your chart, which we're going to go over in a few seconds, then there's a good chance that you are Pleiadian. Some people say Pleiadian, so there's different pronunciations for it, but yes, there's a good chance that you are if you resonate with this. But the Pleiadians are basically from the Pleiades star system, and they tend to be very gentle in nature. They tend to be very soft-spoken and polite. These people tend to have really big hearts, and they tend to be humanitarians, and they really have a concern for other people. And they tend to be highly sensitive, and they tend to be highly empathic. So, empathic in that they can sense other people's energy, they can pick up on if it's negative or positive, and they can transmute other people's energy. So they can help to transmute negative energy into positive energy and vice versa. So they're highly sensitive, highly empathic. They really want to spread love. Like, that's their number one mission to be down on this planet, is to just spread love and to make us, to raise the vibration of the planet, make this a more happy, positive place, on a much higher vibration than it's currently on. And how they do that is through spreading love, basically. And because love and harmony and peace in relationships is so important to them, sometimes they can be people pleasers, and people can walk all over them because they sense this gentleness within them, and people will take advantage of that. So, but they're here to spread love. They tend to be very healing. They go into healing professions a lot of times. They tend to really be into metaphysics. So alternative forms of healing, metaphysics. They're very family oriented. They often feel really different when they're growing up. So they don't feel like, they kind of sense that they don't fit in. They kind of feel different than other people. Often they will feel like the black sheep in their family or around their group of friends or at school. And they can sense that they're kind of different than other people, and that they basically have a big mission. They came down here for a big reason. And sometimes they don't know exactly what that reason is, but they can sense within them that, it's a challenge, and they came here for a reason. There's something big that they need to do. A lot of times they will have food sensitivities. They will be eating things that they're highly sensitive to, and they don't even realize this because they're so highly sensitive that everything affects them in their environment. So the food that they eat, the music they listen to, the air quality, everything, the things they put on their body, it's all affecting them because they're so highly sensitive. And they tend to have a lot of anxiety. This is very common with Pleiadians. A lot of anxiety, and sometimes they can have sensory issues as well. So if you are a life path master number 11, or a life path 2, or a life path number 9, then there's a good chance that you are a Pleiadian Starseed, because the 11 and the 2 and the 9 energy all have a lot of these things in common with the Pleiadians. So if you have one of these 3 numbers as your life path number, then that can be strong confirmation that you're Pleiadian. But you don't have to have them as your life path number. If you have at least 2 or more of these numbers somewhere else in your chart, then you could also be Pleiadian as well, and that can also be confirmation. And that doesn't include any of the numbers that determine timing. So like, it can't be a pinnacle or a cycle or a personal year number. It has to be one of the numbers that's in either your core number chart or some of the less important numbers, like the attitude and personality number and the inner dreams and subconscious self number. 11s, 2s, and 9s are all highly sensitive. They're all highly empathic, and they tend to be healers. They go into healing professions to help people, to counsel people, to heal people on some sort of, level. They tend to be drawn to that. They tend to be humanitarians. They all tend to, really care about other people's feelings and just care about keeping the harmony. These numbers don't like conflict. And if there's any sort of disruptions that cause conflict or disharmony, then they tend to feel a lot of anxiety, and they tend to, it tends to really drag down their mood. So they try to avoid those kind of situations, as much as they can. They care about keeping the peace. 11s and 9s both kind of know that they came down here for a big reason. 11s are master numbers, and they know that they have something important to do. And 9s also kind of feel that way as well, because 9 is the last number in numerology. So they kind of have, both of these numbers have this sense that, okay, I came down here to do something big, and it's usually involving healing the planet in some sort of way. And the thing is that Pleiadians, that's why they come here. They're coming here to change the grid, to change the frequency of the planet. So they have a really big mission. So if you're one of these numbers, chances are you could be a Pleiadian. But definitely check out some of the other starseed groups too, because these numbers pop up in some of the other groups as well. So the next starseed group is another common group known as the Arcturians, and you have probably heard of them before. So if any of this information that I'm about to give you really resonates with you and your intuition is telling you that you are a starseed, and also if you have some of these numbers in your chart, which we're going to go over in a few minutes, then chances are that you are an Arcturian. And some people pronounce it as Arcturian, and either pronunciation is correct. I'm going to go with Arcturian because that feels more comfortable for me. But Arcturians basically come from the star Arcturus, which is a red giant located in the Buddhist constellation. And basically, these people, they tend to have a great love of math, science, metaphysics, and medicine. So they're really into science and technology. And they also tend to be very spiritual too. So their mission is kind of to meld the two together, to bring science and spirituality together as one. That's what a lot of them have come down here to do. Because right now on our planet, there's a big division between the science world and the spiritual world. And a lot of Arcturians basically have come down to remove that division so that the two can finally come together. Because until the two can finally come together, there's always going to be some sort of problems on the planet, right? So they have a big mission, and these people, they tend to like to plan things out. They have a plan. They tend to be very goal-focused, goal-oriented types of people. 7s and 4s like to plan things out ahead of time. 1s are more spontaneous, and they usually don't like to have a plan ahead of time, but once they are on track to do something, then they will stick to the plan until they've had success at it. Like I said, they love technology. They tend to be very telepathic. So they can often read people's thoughts and what they're thinking. People don't even realize this. They're very cerebral. And so they can do a lot of things with their mind that they don't even realize that they're doing. And that includes manifesting things. Manifesting good things and manifesting bad things. They are capable of doing both. And Arcturians have very, very powerful minds. If you look at their heads in the picture, their head is a lot bigger than the typical humans. Their minds are extremely powerful, and they can do all kinds of things on their planet, like moving physical objects with their mind. They can levitate things. They can even teleport objects with their mind. So their minds are very powerful, and Arcturian starseeds tend to be very intelligent and very intellectual as well. And they also tend to be very compassionate, but they guard their feelings, and they're not always the most visually emotional people. So also they can sometimes come off as being arrogant and having a big ego, but it's not that they do, it's just that they kind of know that they came down here to do something big, and there's a mission that they have to do. Like I said before, these people are very analytical. They love to analyze things, go over things in their mind, and just think about all of the different angles of everything. They're very abstract in their thinking. They tend to be very logical in their thinking. And you will often see them as leaders in some sort of leadership position, either at the workplace or in their local communities, in their small communities within their friend groups, or on a bigger scale, a much larger scale. You'll see them in some sort of leadership positions. And they also tend to be very driven, and a lot of times these people will be very successful too. So if you're a life path number 1, 7, or 4, and you resonate with this information, and your intuition is telling you that you're a starseed, then there's a good chance that you are an Arcturian Starseed. Now, I'm a life path number 7, and I've been told by multiple psychics and mediums that I'm an Arcturian Starseed. And I've never been told that I'm one of the other groups. I always get told that I'm Arcturian. And so a lot of this information really does resonate with me. And what's interesting is that when I was a kid, I would try to move objects with my mind, or I would try to like levitate objects with my mind, and I was never able to do it. But this is one of the things that Arcturians can do on their planet. And they can move all kinds of physical objects with their mind, just thinking about it. And so, maybe a part of me could sense that in another lifetime, this is something that I was able to do. And, try to do it on this planet, but, in this lifetime, unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. But you don't have to be a life path number 1, 7, or a 4. You can also have more than one of these numbers somewhere else in your chart. Okay, it can be anywhere in your chart. It can't be some of the timing numbers, like it can't be like a pinnacle or a cycle or a personal year number. But if you have 2 or more of these numbers in your core number chart, or as some of the less important numbers like the inner dreams or the attitude or the personality number, then you could also be an Arcturian Starseed. And as you can see, all of these numbers are very analytical, and they're very rational and logical in their way of thinking. They all tend to be leaders. They have leadership qualities to them. Number 1s are born leaders. 7s tend to become spiritual leaders and spiritual teachers. 4s are leaders in the business world and in other areas of life. And they all have a love of learning too. So the 7, the 1, and the 4, these are lifelong learners. They're always trying to expand their mind and their consciousness. 7s and 4s like to plan things out. They like to have a plan ahead of time. 1s are very spontaneous, and they often will not do this. They kind of just go with the flow. But once they have a plan in mind and they're on track to do something, they usually will stick it out until they've completed the task and they've had some success. So if you are one of these numbers or have more than one of these numbers somewhere in your chart, then that's a good indication that you are Arcturian. But check out some of the other starseed groups, because these numbers pop up in some of the other groups as well. So the next starseed group is another common group that you might have heard of, called the Sirian Starseed group. And they come from the 2-star system of Sirius. Now, these people tend to be very intense daydreamers. They love to daydream, and they often are healers, and they're really into metaphysics. So they will go into healing professions, and they have an interest in metaphysics. They have a love of expressing themselves artistically through creative forms or through clothing. Often these people, they have a certain style about them and a certain way of dressing that really reflects who they are. The way they dress is a big form of self-expression for them. Sometimes you will see them with tattoos, piercings. That's just a way for them to express themselves. And they tend to be very creative people. They tend to go into creative professions, or they will engage in creative hobbies on the side. They tend to have a deep connection to water and the ocean, and they love being around water. It's very healing for them. And they often love animals. They have a deep connection to animals, and often you'll see them as like animal rights activists. They love dolphins, any sort of like ocean animals, but they also have a love of cats and dogs too. Often people that have a lot of pets, like if you have a lot of dogs or if you have a lot of cats, then that's often a big sign that you're a Sirian Starseed. They have a great sense of humor, and they're often really funny people. They just, they know how to make people laugh, and they tend to be very fun, and they have an upbeat, very optimistic personality. They tend to be very good at expressing themselves, but when it comes to expressing their feelings, they're not always the best at this, and it can be hard for them to do that. So if you are a life path number 3, 6, or 9, and this information resonates with you, and your intuition is telling you that you're a starseed, then there's a good chance that you are a Sirian Starseed. So either your life path number is one of these numbers, or you have more than one of these numbers somewhere in your chart. Now, that doesn't include your pinnacles, your cycles, your personal year numbers, none of the timing numbers. It has to be one of the numbers in your core chart or one of the less important numbers like a personality or an attitude number, something like that. But if you have more than one of these numbers somewhere else in your chart other than your life path number, that could also be confirmation that you're Sirian. And 3, 6, and 9, they all have a lot in common with each other. As you can see, these numbers are all multiples of each other. These numbers are what I like to call the creative numbers. So these numbers are all highly creative. They're creative in different ways, of course, but they are creative, and self-expression is very important to them. And they're healers. You know, they're service providers. They provide service to people in different ways, but they're doing that. They're healing other people, basically. So if this resonates with you and you have these numbers in your chart, then you might be a Sirian Starseed, but make sure to check out the other Starseed groups as well, because these numbers also pop up into other groups also. So the next Starseed group is the Lyrans. And if any of this information resonates with you and your intuition is telling you that you're a Starseed, and you have some of these numbers in your chart, which I'm going to go over in a few seconds, then chances are that you are a Lyran Starseed. Some people pronounce it Lyran, some people pronounce it Lyran. Either way is correct, so just go with whatever feels more comfortable for you. But Lyrans come from the Lyra constellation or Lyra constellation, and they tend to be fiercely independent. So independence is very important to them. They tend to be very athletic, and they enjoy exercising. They tend to love exotic foods and exotic lands. They're very curious. Curiosity is one of the strongest traits of a Lyran or Lyran. And it's kind of like the curiosity of a cat. And what's interesting is that Lyrans often will have cat-like features. So they'll have like almond-shaped eyes. And also in terms of, their personality, they're very independent, and they have a lot of curiosity as well. And they love to travel, they love to explore the environment. They tend to have many goals. So these are goal-oriented types of people. And they can be very driven to succeed. If there's something that they're really passionate about and they have their eye on, they will be very driven to achieve that thing that they want. They can get distracted very easily. And they also tend to be big risk takers. So these are people that, that will risk a lot, sometimes even risk everything. That's common with them. These people tend to need more sleep than other people do. So if you find that you're kind of like a sleepy person and, even if you get a lot of sleep, you feel like you didn't get enough, that can also be a sign that you're a Lyran. Also, if you just love sleep in general and sleep is just something that you really enjoy doing, then that can also be a sign that you're a Lyran. These people also tend to like to be in social situations, so it's very important for them to be where the action is. They like to feel a part of the action, but often they will be the observers. So they'll be kind of just observing other people and kind of like analyzing them in their mind and kind of watching everything. They don't always need to be the life of the party, but they like to be where the action is. As long as they're kind of like sitting on the sidelines and kind of just like watching everything. They're very observant people. And they will often see things and pick up on things that other people just can't even see because they're so good at this. Now, if you're a life path number 1, 5, or master number 11, and this information resonates with you, and your intuition is telling you that you're a starseed, then there's a very good chance that you could be a Lyran Starseed. But it doesn't have to be that one of these is your life path number. It can also be that you have more than one of these numbers somewhere in your chart. And that is not including the timing numbers. So like not one of the pinnacles or the cycles or the personal year numbers, nothing like that. But like one of the numbers in your core chart or one of the less important numbers like a personality and attitude numbers, something like that. But these numbers all tend to be very independent and definitely can all take care of themselves. And once they have their eye on something, they can all be very driven. And they have that ability to really just, achieve what it is that they want if they're passionate about something. And they all tend to be big risk takers too. So when they want something, they will risk a lot to go and get it. And often these numbers have big expectations for things that they want in life. So if you have these numbers and this resonates with you, then it's very likely that you're a Lyran Starseed, but make sure to check out all the other Starseed groups as well, because these numbers also pop up into other groups also. So the next group is Orion Starseeds, and these are starseeds that come from the Orion constellation. Now, if this information resonates with you and your intuition is telling you that you're a starseed, and you have some of these numbers in your chart, which I'm going to go over in a few minutes, then chances are that you are a starseed from the Orion constellation. So starseeds from the Orion constellation tend to be very grounded, and they tend to be very hardworking. They are often builders and leaders, and you will often see them in leadership positions, usually in the business world, but also in other areas as well. They often are very opinionated, and they're not easily persuaded. So if they have an idea about something, they're stuck on it usually. They're not easily persuaded. And sometimes they can see the world in black and white. Something is either good or bad, and don't always see the in-between, right? The gray area. But they're very self-controlled, and you will often see them as entrepreneurs. And that's because they are very task and goal-oriented types of people, and they tend to be very organized, and they tend to be very good at planning too. They tend to hold logic above all else, and so, if something is illogical, then it must be true. If it's not logical, then it can't be true. They're logical beings, but they're not always emotional beings, and they're not always the most open with their feelings and their emotions. And they're also very street smart people. So these are people that are very savvy, and they have a lot of business smarts and a lot of street smarts. So people that have a life path number of 4, 8, or master number 22 often will be Orion Starseeds. So if you have one of these numbers as a life path number, and this information resonates with you, and your intuition is telling you that you are a starseed, then it's very likely that you're an Orion Starseed. Now, it doesn't have to be that one of these numbers is your life path number. It can also be that you have more than one of these numbers somewhere else in your chart. And that doesn't include the timing numbers like the pinnacles and the cycles, personal year numbers. It has to be like a number in your core chart, or like one of the less important numbers, like an attitude or a personality number. But as you can see, all of these numbers are very hardworking. They're very self-controlled. They have a lot of qualities that make them the business numbers. That's kind of the way I describe them, is the business-minded numbers. And they all tend to be very driven, and they all tend to be very logical in the way they think, and they're very savvy, and they're all very street smart. So if this resonates with you and you have these numbers in your chart, then you could definitely be an Orion Starseed. But make sure to check out the other Starseed groups, because these numbers also pop up into other groups as well. The next group is the Andromedan Starseeds. Now, the Andromedians come from the Andromeda galaxy, which is outside of our own galaxy. And so if this information resonates with you and your intuition is telling you that you're a starseed, and you have some of these numbers in your chart, which I'm going to go over in a few seconds, then there's a good chance that you are an Andromedan Starseed. Now, Andromedians, they tend to be very easygoing, and they tend to be very laid back. So these are people that are really easy to talk to. They just have this really chill kind of way about them. They seem very chill, and they're just, they're easy to talk to and be around, basically. They don't take things as seriously as some of the other Starseed groups do, and they often have a very childlike way to them. So they often will look very childlike, meaning that they will, they'll have a very youthful look for a very long time. They stay young looking for, even when they get older, and they often have this kind of childlike presence to them where they kind of just, it's like being around them is kind of like being a kid again. They love their freedom and they have a great desire to travel and to explore the world and to see what the planet has to offer. People pronounce it Andromedans, and you can pronounce it either way, Andromedian or Andromedan, whichever is comfortable for you. There's really no correct pronunciation. And sometimes Andromedans will have difficulty with commitment and just sticking with one person. And that's just because they have this childlike quality to them and they love their freedom. And that's important to them. And they love people. So it can be hard for them to commit to just one person. Not always, definitely not always, but sometimes they have difficulty with this. They also will try to avoid conflict at all costs because keeping their vibration high is very important to them. And so, they will try to avoid conflict if they can. They have a very carefree lifestyle and they tend to find jobs in the creative fields and in the spiritual fields. These people tend to be just very creative, free-spirited types of people. They have that vibe to them like the hippies. They kind of have that hippie vibe to them. Very similar to the Sirians. A lot of similarities between those two. So if you are a life path number 3 or a life path number 5, then there's a good chance that you are an Andromedan Starseed if you have those numbers and this information resonates with you and your intuition is telling you that you're a Starseed. Now, you don't have to have those life path numbers. You could have those numbers 3 and 5 somewhere else in your chart. So if you have more than one of those numbers somewhere else other than your life path number, then that can also be confirmation. Now, that doesn't include any of the timing numbers. So doesn't include pinnacles or cycles or personal year numbers. But like if it's in your core chart or one of the less important numbers like your personality or attitude number, then that would count. And as you can see, 3 and 5 have that very laid back type of quality to them where they're just very easygoing, and these tend to be very high vibrational people. They want to keep their vibration high, so they will avoid conflicts and they love to explore the environment. They tend to be very outgoing, highly energetic numbers, and they're both free spirits. That's the best way to describe these two numbers. They're very free-spirited. So if this information resonated with you and you have these numbers, then you might be an Andromedan Starseed. But definitely check out some of the other Starseeds as well, because these numbers also pop up in the other groups also. So our last Starseed group is the Venusian group, and the Venusians came from the planet Venus. There's a lot of theories that at one point in time, Venus used to support life and there were beings that lived there, and these would have been that group of people. And also, time is not linear, so it could also be that this Starseed group basically lives in another dimension. They're, we're in the 3rd dimension and they're in the 4th dimension, so that's why we can't see them. So there's a lot of theories about Venusians, and so they came from the planet Venus, and they tend to be very sensual and very passionate. Now, if you know about astrology, then you know that the planet Venus is the planet of passion, and it's the planet of love and, sensualness, that kind of stuff. So these people tend to be like that. They also tend to be very nurturing, and they tend to be very compassionate, and they're powerful healers. They tend to go into professions where they can heal people in some sort of way, even if they don't realize this. They have a very healing aura to them, a healing vibe, and they often feel compelled to help other people. They feel like this is their life calling, is to go into some sort of helping profession. Or they're often thrown into positions where they kind of have to take care of other people. They just have this desire and this need within them to do that. They can get jealous very easily. This is common with them, not always, but it can happen because remember, Venus is the planet of passion, right? So sometimes they can be jealous because of this. They often tend to be very attractive, right? Venus rules over all of those things. So they tend to be very attractive physically. And the women tend to be very feminine looking and have a very feminine look, and the men tend to be very masculine. And so if you are a life path number 6 or master number 33, then it could very well be that you're Venusian. If you resonate with this information and your intuition is telling you that you're a starseed, or if you have these 2 numbers in multiple places in your chart. And that doesn't include any of the timing numbers, so not as one of your pinnacles or cycles or personal year numbers. You would have to have these numbers in your core number chart or as one of your less important numbers, like a personality or an attitude number, something like that. And it would have to be 2 or more of these numbers. So, but as you can see, life path 6 and master number 33, they have these qualities. 6 in numerology is ruled by the planet Venus. So 6s have a lot of these qualities that I've described here. And life path number 33s also have a lot of these qualities as well. So if you are one of these numbers, there's a good chance that you are Venusian. But definitely make sure to check out the other starseed groups as well, because these numbers also pop up into other groups also. So let me know in the comments below what your results were. Did it turn out that you might be a starseed? Did any of the information about the particular ET group resonate with you and resonate with who you feel like you are as a person? Let us know in the comments below. And you can always book a reading with me if you want me to go more into depth into the specifics of your chart. You can check out that information. I'll put a link to it below. And if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, share it with other people, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video today. I'm sending you light and love, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.